This video is about to change your life. Once you watch it, there is no going back, my friend. So what'll it be, red pill or blue pill? Before we dive into it, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Hannah and I help people to own their powers and step into the driver's seat of their own lives. Today, I'm actually going to be doing that by getting quite vulnerable and sharing a recent experience I had with you guys in which I received the most powerful, enlightening downloads I believe I have ever gotten. And let me tell you, this shit is completely life-changing stuff. And there's been so much resistance actually to making and posting this video, which always tells me that it needs to be posted, it needs to be put out there. It's almost like the dark forces trying to make sure it doesn't get out there. So that being said, the downloads I'm getting are that the things that I learned that I'm about to be sharing in this video and the next one, part 2, these are truths, tools, activations that are meant to assist you with your ascension journey. So take of this what you will. So basically, the experience that I had is that I OD'd on pot gummies and I went on the craziest trip that what I've learned is not normal at all for someone just taking pot gummies. I went on this crazy, quite literal out-of-body trip. I had essentially a near-death experience. As I said, I literally went to hell. I experienced dying and going to hell. I experienced God, being God and enlightenment, among other things. And though it wasn't a very pleasant experience, shall I say, and I ended up in the hospital and I was kind of dissociated from my body for a good 2+ weeks afterwards. It was very much a necessary experience that I am so grateful that I had, and I know that I'm always going to reflect on my life and know that this was a major turning point for me. And it's my hope that in sharing these downloads that I got in this experience, that it's able to have a similar effect on you. So to preface, I have never done drugs in my life. I don't even drink alcohol anymore because I'm quite sensitive to substances. And actually, this is a point that's very important that I will be discussing later. But I just want to make that clear. I am not the kind of person that does any sort of drugs, even if it's just a little pot gummy, right? So it's really weird in the first place that I would have even been in this situation. But basically, my best friend came to visit and I hadn't seen her in a while, and she brought these gummies, and we had decided Hannah's first experience getting high was going to be with her. And it went horribly wrong. But I guess only in the external, because like I said, I got all these downloads and had all these lessons that have been absolutely life-changing. But essentially that's what happened. I took 4 times the amount of dosage that I was supposed to have. And on top of that, I'm already just really sensitive to any sort of substance, any sort of plant medicine, anything like that. I'm very sensitive. But on top of that, I took 4 times the dosage. Basically, this led to me about 30 minutes or so into the high, an hour or so into the high, just perpetually vomiting. I had hella purging. I literally puked for probably 2-3 hours straight, and I had to be taken to the hospital and then had a crazy experience there. Before finally coming back and then just being dissociated for 2 weeks or so and very much out of my body. So in this video, I'm gonna focus on 5 revelations that I had that I believe can assist others in your ascension journey. And I actually was intending to do this all in one video, and it was really overwhelming because each one of these topics could be years and years of study, I feel, and meditation. So I didn't want to do it all in one video. I'm actually going to be making a part 2. But in this video, we're going to be focusing on 5 revelations that will help your ascension. So point number 1, reality is an illusion. And you've probably heard that a million times. You probably heard me say that a million times. But let me tell you, my friends, I literally experienced reality being an illusion. I am 1,000,000% a believer now because that was 100% my experience. It's very difficult to put into words, and I'll say a lot of the stuff I'm going to share, it's difficult to put into the words because I was in a different reality. Basically, I was in a different dimension, and there aren't really words to describe the concepts, the things that I experienced. But I will tell you that I could just experientially feel and see that reality is an illusion. I literally just saw how dull this reality, this 3D world that we're incarnated in right now, how dull it was. That's the best way I could describe it. This 3D reality, this matrix, it looks very dull compared to actual reality. And as soon as I took the gummies and like the high kind of hit me, it was like whoosh. I was like in this real reality that was way more vivid than anything we really have in the third dimension. That's the only way I can describe it. It was vivid. It was clear. It was beautiful. And by contrast, I could be like, oh, wow, yeah, like the 3D, we think of that as being like so real as opposed to maybe like a 2D, like an animation or something, but it is nothing compared to ultimate reality. I also saw that certain people, like as I was walking, so I was at the beach when this experience happened, and me and my friend, once I started to have like a really bad high, we kind of just walked back to where we were staying. And I was just walking on the beach, and I could see certain people, how they were NPCs. So literally that concept, as I experienced it, does exist. I could see that there are some people that simply aren't souls. They're just placeholders to make this experience more rich for everyone else. They literally don't have souls. They're kind of like programs. They're NPCs. They're part of the matrix. And obviously it's not like an insult to some people. I know people throw around like, oh, you're such an NPC and stuff, but if you're the type person that would even be watching this video and like listening to this, you're not an NPC. Just to be clear, an NPC would never even come across something that would bring their true nature to their mind, if that makes sense. Also, I hope this is grounded enough and this isn't totally out there. I already feel like I have a hard time conveying what I want to convey in my videos, grounding it as is, and this was just a whole nother level, let me tell you. I also experienced with reality being an illusion that yes, there are many realities. And I experienced all of them simultaneously at one point, which was insane, which I will also get into more later. But yeah, there's so many different realities out there. And we always have a choice on which reality we can align with. So topic number 2 is that time doesn't exactly exist. And that's another one you've probably heard a million times. And if you follow me, you've heard me say it a million times. I'm always saying it. Again, though, for me, this experience was mind-blowing because I literally experienced it. Complete timelessness. I remember, like, I experienced countless lifetimes after, like, during this high. So in this 3D reality, the high for me lasted about 5 hours. But in my reality, what I was experiencing, it was infinity. It was eternity. It was lifetimes. And I distinctly remember towards the beginning of the experience, I could barely talk. That's another thing. I could barely talk, but the one thing I kept being able to ask and convey to my friend that was with me was like, what time is it? And then my friend would tell me, and I wouldn't say anything else because I would be like having an existential crisis and like breaking down internally. Because from my experience, I would experience, let's say, an entire lifetime okay, worth of time. I would experience an entire lifetime. Then I would ask my friend, what time is it? And I would find that in this 3D reality where my body was anchored, only 10 minutes had passed. And I'm like, oh my God, I knew there was a part of me that knew that this high was gonna last at least a few hours. And I had thought, like, yo, I just lived a whole reality, like a whole lifetime. I gotta be close to like getting out of this state and coming back to my body, right? No, like that was just 10 minutes of real time. It was so geeky and so disheartening too, because the timelessness that I experienced, as I talk about in the title, like I was experiencing hell more often than that. So it was not pleasant. I wanted to get out of that as soon as I could. But that was part of my lesson. It was to surrender to timelessness, if you will. And that's like a lesson that's very important to our ascension, is to know we need to just surrender to that timelessness. We can't make things happen on our own time frame. So the other thing I wanted to talk about that before we go too far down the rabbit hole is that time, it does exist in the sense, it's sort of like bookmarks. If our whole life is like a book, time is like different bookmarks within that book. It doesn't mean we can never actually like go back or go ahead in the book, but probably if we don't want to be totally confused and disoriented, we do want to go along in sequential order, right? But it's not necessary. We can open the book at any page, really, and we can go back to any page. So time really is just like bookmarks for us, and they kind of help us like in the higher realms and those in the higher realms to organize the experience of our 3D existence on Earth. Are you still with me? Am I losing you? Let me know in the comments if you're keeping up with this stuff, because it really is a fear that this is just like, I'm not like conveying the points that I want to convey. It's so hard to put words to these experiences. Another thing, if you've had experiences, whether it's like a near-death experience or an experience with substances or plant medicine and like that is similar, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about your experiences as well, because I know it's quite common with those experiencing, near-death experiences and substances that they will experience timelessness. So 3, revelation number 3, we are all goddess, God or goddess. God has no gender polarity. So it's whatever terminology you prefer, whether you prefer even to just say the universe. But I'm just going to stick with God because I'm reading the book again, Conversations with God. So I'm kind of reclaiming that terminology and just kind of redefining what it means for me personally. But yeah, I experienced that. I've heard it a time and time again too, that we are God, we are all one, we are all connected, right? But when I had this gummy trip, I experienced it for like a split, fleeting moment, and yet it was an eternity, is the only way I could describe it. There was a moment of this trip where I kind of transcended hell. I transcended my 3D physical experience, and I was God. And this is not to be like some egotistical thing like, oh yeah, Hannah's got a God complex. She thinks she's God and she's so much better than everyone else. No. The truth is we are all God. Every one of us has the capacity to experience that. And that is what I experienced when I had this trip. I experienced literally being everyone and everything in every dimension, in every reality, in every world, simultaneously. It was the quite literally trippiest thing that I've ever experienced. I experienced being God. That's all that I can say. That's really the best way to put it. Being everything and everyone all at once. I guess if advice on this to help with your ascension and stuff is just know that it is. Just know that it is. Just know that you are. And you don't have to try and ground this because that will kind of explode your brain. It's very much an experiential thing. And if we start thinking about it too much, philosophizing about it too much here in the 3D, it might just blow our brains and drive us crazy. But know that, you know, when the time comes, when you transcend this plane of existence, you will go back to experiencing that God essence, okay? Here is godless kind of illusion essence that we're experiencing. But once you've transcended, you've passed on, you've moved to the other dimensions, you've ascended quite literally, you will return back to that wholeness, that feeling of wholeness and interconnectedness with everyone and everything. And oh my gosh, it is so magical. Just trust me, if you've never experienced this for yourself, it is so magical and it is so, so real. So now that we've gotten some of those like really big, like philosophical, spiritual, esoteric truths out of the way, gonna ground it back to the 3D a little bit and talk about drug / substance / plant medicine use. So what I learned, I always kind of suspected this, but I really got the download strong and I experienced it myself, is that when we use drugs, when we use plant medicine, it literally detaches the soul from the body, from the avatar, as I like to call it. Life is a video game, right? Our player selves are our higher selves, our souls. And we kind of like incarnate into this physical 3D body, the player that's within the matrix. When you use drugs and or plant medicine, you are kind of detaching your soul from the body, from your avatar. And now this is going to happen to varying degrees for various people, depending on how sensitive you are to energy and also how like ready your soul is, how used to your soul is to not incarnating in a body and being like spiritual. For me, yeah, like I completely, almost completely detached my soul from my body. But I feel for many people, such as my friend that I was with that also took the same amount of like gummy. Actually, she took more gummies than me. So she technically OD'd more than me, but had no like adverse reaction. Like she just experienced like a normal high. And I think when people are experiencing normal highs from doing drugs, working with plant medicines, it's like their soul is still detaching from their body. It's just to a lesser degree. It's just varying levels. It's like a scale, like varying levels of how much your soul can detach. If your soul like detaches completely, that can often mean death or like you're about to die. I feel like my soul was about as close as I could possibly be to that point. And I think in contrast, when people are just like smoking a joint or they just take a gummy, like the actual dose they're supposed to take or whatever, it's just a little bit, it just gives them a little taste of getting out of their body and into their soul. So it's not like overwhelming. So something that I experienced that was really affirming of this truth was that it was very difficult for me to move my body and to speak in this reality. It took all of my effort and all of my focus just to say a simple muffled word, just to like move my feet. Everything felt so freaking heavy. And then let me tell you, I talked to one of my best friends about this afterward, a friend that regularly works with plant medicines and different substances and stuff, and pot specifically. And she also always has experienced the same thing where she just feels heavy, she says, and like struggles to move her body. And so the download I got on that, if you also experience the same thing or you know people that have, it's because that person is so far detached from their body. Their soul is so far detached. They're so in their soul energy that it's just very difficult to control the avatar because they're that far out of it at that point. And I could literally feel and experience that. I was so detached from the physical 3D avatar that is Hannah Azok in this 3D reality that it just required all of my focus to even do simple movements. So most of the time, I didn't move my body, and it was really freaky to my friend and others in my reality because I was just like like a vegetable, basically. I was like a husk, just kind of sitting there like speechless, not able to really move or speak. But what I was experiencing was, I was like, whoa, I'm like experiencing being God and experiencing all these other realities simultaneously. I don't want to go back to that reality that I'm normally in. Why would I want to like use this precious energy to like move that avatar right now? So really, I only kind of did it to, reassure my friend back in this reality that, you know, I'm not dead. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. That's the only reason I put any effort in whatsoever. So that being said, number 5, and I guess the topic that we're going to end on today, substances aren't for everyone, okay? This was very important to convey, because I feel like it's becoming more and more common in the spiritual community to work with plant medicines and substances. And there's nothing wrong with that. I see nothing wrong with that. There is no judgment whatsoever. However, there needs to be caution exercised. I feel like people aren't being as cautious as they could be, because some of us, like me, are not really supposed to work with substances of any kind, whether they're man-made or of the earth. Some of us were basically, the best way I can describe it is we're already so tapped in, we're already so connected to our soul essence, and we're already like channeling all these different sources, is that if you're using that substance to kind of boost you out of yourself, it's gonna like boost you way too far, and it's gonna be hard to come back, and it's gonna like overstimulate your senses. But if you're the type, if you are like a little bit more grounded and you're more in the matrix, you're more in your avatar self, it might just provide you with just enough boost to like get out and start to like really ground these spiritual truths. So I learned, I got the hit. I always kind of suspected this, but it was made very clear to me during this trip. I heard this like loud, omniscient, booming voice that was like admonishing me. It's like, what are you doing? You are not supposed to be using drugs of any kind, Hannah. Why did you do this? And basically what I learned from this voice was, it's like, I, as a soul, this isn't going to be everyone, but maybe you'll relate. I personally, as a soul, incarnated to be very grounded actually in this 3D reality, and to be very present in this 3D reality. And if I'm playing with substances and plant medicine, like, it takes me way too much out of this reality, and it's not why I came here. So yeah, maybe you're like me. What is really interesting to me is that my twin flame and my soulmate, who I both mentioned in this video that I'm going to link above, they both have had similar experiences to me on my gummy trip that they had told me about. And then I talked to like this other friend who works with like these medicines, these substances, but just always kind of has serious kickbacks and feels like she shouldn't be. And meanwhile, I know other people that, you know, work with them all the time, or going to like ayahuasca ceremonies regularly and stuff, and get great benefit from that. So it's like just recognizing that there are some people that it is totally in their path to work with substances, and there are some people who it is not in their path. And so I just wanted to give you permission, if you're the type that it's not your path and you really like feel that, to trust your intuition. You don't have to give into like the spiritual peer pressure, if you will, of this new thing of like working with plant medicines and the like. Because to be honest, there's always a part of me that felt kind of contracted when I thought of using any sort of substance. I always kind of wanted to play with marijuana and with ayahuasca, specifically those two. It called to me, but there was just like this contracting feeling when I thought about it. And now I know why. It's because it's just not my path personally. So if when you think about using any sort of substance, I'd encourage you to check in with you and your own energy. Does it feel contracted? If so, you might be the type that you're not meant to work with substances in this life, and that's totally cool. In fact, it could be considered a boon because it means you're so connected already. And that's what's really funny is it's like a lot of times like trolls and stuff will post on my videos where I'm channeling, I'm talking about dragons or other crazy shit. Like, what is she on? Like, oh, she like talking about shrooms, or like the fact that I'm doing drugs. I don't do drugs. This was the one time I've only ever done drugs. And this is why I don't do drugs, because I'm just like constantly, I'm just always, I'm so integrated and so connected with the other side every day that I don't really need to do drugs. Drugs overstimulate me. I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse at this point, but I really hope that that point got across. And so in the next video, I'm going to talk about actually the nature of ODing, what that feels like, what that means, and like a little bit more about those who are meant to work with drugs in this life. I'm also going to be talking about like how you can literally transcend hell, and how like you can create your own reality in a positive way that feels supportive, and also purging, how to release and purge low density energies. So there's a lot of fun stuff that I'm going to talk about in the next one. And until then, I would be curious to hear if this is making any sense at all to you, or if I just sound like I have totally gone off the deep end here. Let me know your feedback in the comments. And if you have any further questions, because that helps me to kind of ground this information. If you have any questions at all, I am happy to answer. I will say too, though, I have had to kind of pull back on how much I'm like reading my comments, just because I'm starting to get so many. It's like unsustainable to always answer every single comment I get. So now kind of my boundaries are like within the first 24, 48 hours of a new video, I will answer all of those comments. So if you do have comments, let me know ASAP in seeing this video. If not, it might be hit or miss on if I get back to you. It's just kind of, I just follow my intuition now. It's really random, but I'm no longer able to unfortunately answer every single comment. If you do have like a serious question and I'm not answering your comments on YouTube, you can always feel free to reach out to me via ownyourpowers.com. I have a contact form and I'm happy to start up a conversation there, or even just take your questions and maybe that'll inspire me to make a new video. So as always, my friends, thank you for watching. Much love to you on your journey from me and the dragons. And until next time, stay powerful.